What is going on, everybody? I'm back today to talk about something that is being discussed right now quite a lot in the film community online. And this is all pertaining to a new independent film that was released called Late Night with the Devil that is actually partnered with Shudder. And I was very excited to watch this movie, and I still have not seen it yet. But the discussion surrounding the film is involving the use of artificial intelligence with the film, where 3 or 4 images that are used throughout the film were completely and totally constructed by artificial intelligence. And the director said that they had been created through that AI software, but that they had kind of played with them and changed them a little bit. And it has sent the internet into an uproar. People are absolutely furious, discussing boycotts about the movie. And the film has already gone through its opening weekend, and it made decent money, nothing too crazy, but kind of surprising for an opening weekend horror film produced by an independent company. And there's been a lot of discourse back and forth online about how this film in particular needed a 100% boycott to let the studios know that we don't want artificial intelligence in film. There have been people saying, I don't care that there's been artificial intelligence used, it's an indie movie. A lot of people worked very hard on it. I'm not going to boycott a film just because it cut corners here. And what I think is really interesting about this conversation and about the dialogue being had between people online is there's not a lot of thoughtfulness in it. It doesn't seem like people are very willing to listen to both sides of the argument, and instead, like, if someone just disagrees with you, you treat them horribly and act like they're a moron and they don't know what they're talking about. But unfortunately, I don't think the discussion is as simple as that. And as someone who went to school for film production and who understands a lot of the ins and outs of the industry and how the industry grows and things that the industry does to shift, even the negatives that the industry does, it's not always so cut and dry. And so I thought I would use today's video to kind of discuss my opinion on the situation and talk about it with you a little bit. And obviously in the comments, hear your opinions on it. I think it's fascinating to listen to people's opinions. And I'm not necessarily saying my opinion is 100% correct, because it's a very complex situation, but I'm going to try to talk about it as a whole and discuss my thoughts on it, and really just, kind of examine both sides and see where people are coming from. So as I said, this film being discussed in particular is a independently produced film that is produced through Shudder, which I think it's coming to Shudder in like April, and David Dastmalchian is the lead. I've heard a lot of really great things about the movie as a whole, but it's being criticized because of these images used in the movie. And essentially, you've seen these softwares online. People are using them on their phones where you can type in keywords or you can say things, and these artificial intelligence software will generate an image, but there's always something a little off about it. And if you look at these images in particular, there's one going around with a skeleton dancing around some pumpkins. You can just really see how off they look. It doesn't really look natural and it doesn't look realistic. And an artist could have done it in probably a day or two and made it look a lot more realistic. And so this is the big discussion. And I want to start out, my number one opinion is I truly do not believe that there is any place for artificial intelligence in filmmaking. I, for one, think movies need to be made by people. There are people that are going to be working behind the camera on sound, production design, editing, directing, acting. You have people in all facets of something, and they work together to create this piece of media. And I think there's something so cool about that. And I don't want artificial intelligence writing screenplays. I don't want artificial intelligence filling in the gaps where extras could stand to save a little bit of money. I don't want that at all. I think that's cutting corners, and I think it's incredibly lazy. But unfortunately, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people are willing to accept yet, artificial intelligence is going to be in film. And I know so many people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you would say that. It's unfortunately the reality of the situation, because no matter how many people who love movies that, you can fight with your dollar, certainly, and say, I'm not going to watch these movies. When companies like Marvel and Disney, like these larger corporations, start using artificial intelligence for some of their blockbusters, the general audience audiences are still going to go watch the movie, because to them, the movies and going with their families on the weekend is a form of escapism, and they are not going to do the level of research and things to stop spending money on something like a movie using artificial intelligence. It's just the reality of the situation. It's the same thing. I parallel it to like Amazon. You know, so many people, when Amazon started really bulking up and had the 2-day Prime delivery, and they're like, oh, it's gonna kill small businesses. We're if we fight hard enough, they won't succeed and whatever. But convenience is always going to surpass that fight of the people who are genuinely passionate about that. And I think similarly to this, convenience is going to take all. When production companies are going to realize that they can use artificial intelligence to cut corners and possibly pay less salaries, they're going to do it. And it's sad and it's really upsetting. But I think what we can do as film lovers, and what people in the industry can do, is fight about the regulations of artificial intelligence. And I think that's what this conversation should boil down to as a whole, is that artificial intelligence in the industry needs regulated. Because personally, and I could be wrong, I might be wrong, but I think the way filmmaking is moving, how films in the box office aren't making the kind of money that they used to, with the exception of some films like Oppenheimer and Barbie, or like Top Gun Maverick a couple years ago, or Avatar. There's films here and there, but as far as like, you know, your run-of-the-mill indie movies, or even like bigger budget horror movies now, they don't necessarily make the kind of money that they used to make. And in turn, production companies are going to try to find ways to cut corners. And I think that AI is the first step. And you see that not only in the movie theater industry, but for larger businesses that do like financial reporting using artificial intelligence to predict things in the future. Or even if you look at the food service industry, how much is like robotics are being introduced to like cut on costs of employees being in businesses. You see restaurants that are moving away from dine-in and just doing drive-through, so that way they can do like an AI at the speaker to recognize your mobile order. Like, there's so many things that our society is moving in that direction, and I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen in the filmmaking industry at some point. But I think what we can do is work with production companies and put our money where our mouth is for people donating to like SAG, and people who are working with actors and writers and producers, so that way they can fight against these AI companies from completely taking over. And I think it's interesting that it's all been centered around this small indie horror film. I know like last year there was a Marvel TV show that used artificial intelligence in their opening credits, and it looked horrible, like absolutely terrible. And no one said anything about it because it wasn't at the central focal point of conversation. AI has been a really big topic of discussion this year, and that is why I think that this movie in particular was the kind of starting off point for having this conversation. But what's interesting is when you think about artificial intelligence, and I talk about regulating it, like when I look at artificial intelligence in the industry, one way that I could see it being utilized where it's not going to be as harmful is if you look at the job of an animator. You hear horror stories about the Spider-Verse films and the hours and hours and hours that people worked on those, and they're underpaid for the most part. Animators get paid worse than virtually any job in the filmmaking industry. And what I could see AI doing is having a person craft a character, draw a character, and have AI kind of map out the movements of the characters, to where then a human being goes in and make sure that it's like completely and totally fluid and that it looks right. That would save animators time and would make sure that they weren't overworked, and there would still be that human touch working with the artificial intelligence. And I think things like that, you can regulate that and make it work in the industry. But if you're getting to the point where you're like, okay, we're just going to have AI generate these screenplays and just change things, I think that's really disgusting and it's awful. We're even filling in the background. I think there was a Disney Channel show or something I saw some clips of that was using artificial intelligence, like artificial intelligence background actors, and you could just see from looking at it immediately how bad it looked. And so I think there's going to be a fight involved, but I think anyone out there who has the delusion that boycotting this one movie is going to be the end all be all of AI being in film, you're totally wrong, because this is centered around a small independent horror movie that general audiences probably are not going to go watch, to be completely honest with you. And if you look at Disney, if they put out a big animated film or a Marvel movie or anything like that, and artificial intelligence is going to be used in it, there's not going to be a huge boycott. People are still going to go watch the movies, and Disney is not worried about their wallets being impacted. And it's sad because, as I said at the beginning of the video, I don't want artificial intelligence in movies. I really don't think there's any place for it, but I truly am being a realist, and I think that it's going to be in movies, and I think it's going to exist. And the best we can do is have organizations like SAG-AFTRA and people working with writers and directors and producers to regulate how it is used. So what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence in movies? Let me know in the comments. I think it's a very complex issue, and I think people have been really awful to other people about it and don't understand that it's an incredibly complex issue, and it's not so cut and dry. And I just wanted to share my opinions on it today. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.